Breaking news. Britain suffers worst political hangover in a generation. The United Kingdom is waking up, blinking in the harsh light of a new reality, with a pounding headache and a deep, unsettling feeling that some very bad decisions were made the night before. Except, this wasn't just one wild night. It was a years-long political bender called Brexit. The party is over. Now, the nation is left staring at the empty bottles, the broken furniture, and the very, very long bill. The air is thick with a quiet collective groan. A country realizing the promises whispered during the fever dream of the 2016 referendum were just that. Dreams. The triumphant roar of take back control has faded into a mumbled question. Control of what, exactly? The ever-increasing cost of cheese. The bravado has evaporated, replaced by a weary pragmatism. Politicians who once stood proudly in front of battle buses are now conspicuously quiet. The Brexit hangover is real, and it's a throbbing, relentless ache that no amount of patriotic tea can cure. The nation is collectively asking itself the most painful question of all. Was it worth it? And increasingly, the answer echoing from every corner of the kingdom is a resounding and very British, well, not really, no. Let's cast our minds back to the heady days of 2016. The Leave campaign promised sovereignty, prosperity, and control. We were told that leaving the EU would unleash a tidal wave of growth, with fantastic new trade deals and companies flocking to our shores. Immigration would be managed with a new points-based system, cherry-picking the best and brightest while reducing numbers. The campaign suggested this would ease pressure on public services and make life better for everyone. Trade deals would be easy. The EU needed us more than we needed them, and the world was queuing up to trade with Britain. No downsides, only upsides, a political fairy tale. And at the heart of it all, sovereignty, laws made in Britain by British politicians. Brexit was framed as a glorious act of national self-determination, but as we now know, promises are much easier to make than to keep. The reality has been far less romantic. Ah, the big red bus. If there's one image that captures the Brexit campaign, it's that. We send the EU $350 million a week, let's fund our NHS instead. Simple, memorable, and utterly misleading. The real net amount was much lower, and much of it came back to the UK anyway. But $350 million was big, shocking, and easy to digest. A weaponized statistic designed to inflame, not inform. It created a villainous narrative, of foreign power taking our money, money that could save lives. By the time fact-checkers caught up, the lie had already run a marathon. The promised NHS windfall never materialized. In fact, Brexit has made it harder to recruit doctors and nurses, and the NHS is under even greater strain. The $350 million myth wasn't just a fib. It preyed on people's genuine love for their health service. It's a stark reminder, when a promise sounds too good to be true, it almost certainly is, especially when it's written on the side of a bus. The hangover from this one claim is particularly painful. The abstract promises of 2016 have crashed into the concrete reality of 2025. For ordinary families, Brexit is no longer a political debate, it's a daily struggle. Supermarket shelves have gaps, fresh produce faces delays and extra costs, and the weekly shop is more expensive than ever. British businesses now face a mountain of new bureaucracy to trade with their closest market. Many small businesses have simply given up, unable to absorb the costs or hassle. Job losses and business closures have hit communities across the country. The NHS is desperately short of nurses and care workers, the hospitality industry can't find staff, and farmers watch fruit rot in the fields. The new immigration system is slow, expensive, and ill-suited to the economy's needs. Wages have failed to keep pace with the rising cost of living, made worse by Brexit-induced inflation. The UK economy, once a G7 leader, is now stuck in the slow lane. For millions, Brexit has meant a smaller paycheck, a more expensive life, and a growing sense of insecurity. The sunlit uplands feel very far away. If you want to understand the Brexit hangover, look at the numbers. The UK's Office for Budget Responsibility forecasts Brexit will reduce long-run productivity by 4%, a $40 billion annual hit to tax revenue. That's money lost for schools, hospitals, and police. Brexit-related trade barriers have added $7 billion to UK food bills in just 2 years, an extra $250 per household. Lower-income families are hit hardest. The promise was more money in your pocket. The reality is the opposite. The City of London has lost over 7,000 jobs and $1.3 trillion in assets to EU financial hubs. The golden goose hasn't been killed, but it's lost a lot of feathers. On migration, EU net migration has fallen, but non-EU migration has surged to record highs. The total net migration figure for 2023 was one of the highest in British history. The policy designed to take back control has resulted in different migration patterns, but overall numbers remain high. On every key metric, Brexit has failed to deliver what was promised. The numbers don't lie. The most dramatic consequence of the Brexit hangover is the shift in public opinion. The 52-48 split of 2016 feels like a lifetime ago. Now, a clear majority of Britons believe leaving the EU was the wrong decision. Brexit is everywhere, spreading from cities to towns, young to old. The biggest shift? Among Leave voters themselves, many now feel this isn't what they voted for. They wanted prosperity, not empty shelves, control, not more red tape, a stronger NHS, not staff shortages. The gap between promise and reality is too wide to ignore. Polls show Remain would win comfortably if the referendum were held today. Even in communities that voted most heavily for Brexit, regret is strongest. This change of heart is creating a dilemma for politicians, who still treat Brexit as untouchable. But the public has moved on, while Westminster remains stuck in 2016. The Great British Regret is now the country's biggest open secret. Brexit didn't happen in a vacuum. It was the result of decades of British skepticism toward Europe. The British press, especially tabloids, fed the public a steady diet of stories about Brussels bureaucracy gone mad. This drip feed of negativity made leaving seem not just plausible, but logical. The Leave campaign harnessed this emotion, making Brexit about identity, not just trade or regulations. Take Back Control spoke to a longing for lost sovereignty and national greatness. The coalition that voted for Brexit was broad but fragile, uniting free market conservatives and working-class voters with opposite goals. The simple, emotional story of Leave papered over deep contradictions. Once the vote was won, that coalition fractured, as it became clear you can't have both a hyper-capitalist paradise and a protected state-supported economy. One of the most astonishing features of Brexit was the lack of a plan. The Leave campaign won the referendum but had no blueprint for what came next. The government was left staring at a blank sheet of paper, with a 2-year deadline to negotiate its exit. This absence of a plan led to years of political chaos, infighting, and paralysis. Britain, once known for stability, became a case study in chaos. 2 general elections, 2 prime ministers down. Ultimately, the UK ended up with a hard Brexit, not because it was popular, but because it was the only option the ruling party could agree on. The deal prioritized sovereignty, creating the very trade barriers businesses had warned about. Britain stumbled into its future, not by design, but by default. So here we are, in late 2025, nursing a national hangover and facing a stark choice. The divisions sown by Brexit have not healed, they've festered, leaving the country more polarized than ever. Britain's influence on the world stage has visibly diminished. By leaving the EU, the UK lost its seat at one of the world's top tables. Now we're often rule takers, not rule makers. The UK faces a fork in the road: continue as we are, economically adrift, politically isolated, or rebuild bridges with Europe. Rejoining the EU isn't on the immediate horizon, but a closer relationship is almost certain. A future government will likely seek a new, deeper partnership with the EU, perhaps rejoining the single market or a customs union. The choice is clear: stay adrift in the cold waters of the North Atlantic, or start building a bridge back to the continent we never should have left. The Brexit hangover lingers, but the path forward is ours to choose. The question is, will we take it?